Matthew 4:8. Again the devil took him up on a very high mountain, and showed him all the reigns of the world and their esteem, and said to him, All these I shall give you, if you fall down and worship me. Then Yahusha said to him, Go, Satan, for it has been written, You shall worship Yahuwah your Elohim, and him alone you shall serve. The Mount of Temptation in Palestinian Arabic, Jebel Qurantu, is a mountain over the city of Jericho in the West Bank in the state of Palestine. Ancient Christian tradition identifies it as the location of the temptation of Yahusha, described in the New Testament Gospels of Mark, Matthew, and Luke, in which it is said, From a high place the devil offered Yahusha rule over all the kingdoms of the world. The city of Jericho lies at the feet of the east Mount Qurantu at 258 meters. Qurantu had previously been the location of the Seleucid and Maccabean fortress known as Dak or Dagon. Dagon, the fish deity, right? It was the scene of the assassination for Simon Maccabees and his two sons. Now, and it says a high mountain. High mountain is Hepsilon. The devil offered Jesus all the kingdoms of the world, right? All right, now if you go to Matthew 4:8, you'll see this word, high, Hepsilon, okay? Now they have a map here of Jerusalem from the Crusader days. And here's the map, right here. So now if you zoom into this area right here, you'll see Epsilos, right? This is the high mountain, and then you have Jericho below it. So this is the high mountain, and that's Jericho right at the foot of this mountain. Now, when this passage was connected to a specific hill of late antiquity, it was eventually given the name Mount Quarantine. Think about that, quarantine. So why would Satan take Yahusha up onto the Mount of Temptation in Jericho, which is called Quarantine, and tell him that he would give him all the rule of all the earth? It is because in Jericho is where the first civilizations started. It was the oldest inhabited city in the world. Now, Jericho is now called Tel Es Sultan. And what does that mean? If you Google Sultan, the name means strength, ruler, king, queen, and power. The Hebrew Strong's word for Sultan is 7983, Shultan. This word means authority, power, dominion. So dominion is rule over all the entire earth, and it began in Jericho. If you see the word here, it's exousia. We see that word in Ephesians 6:12, where Paul says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the exousias protu cosmocratorus, which means the authority against the cosmic powers. Cosmic power. This is a demonic power controlling the sublunary world. Now, when we go back to Shultan, you'll see that this word comes from shalat. Shalat, 7980, means to dominate, to govern. This has the meaning of government. So this is where government began. To gain mastery over, to have dominion, to govern, to prevail. See the same words for Sultan here, right? There's Sultan, right? So Jericho was called Tel Es Sultan. Tel means a mound of the Sultan. So this mound is where all this rule began. So Tel Es Sultan means the mound of dominion, the mound of the ruler, government, mound of government. It's located adjacent to Ein Es Sultan, means the eye of government. Now, if you look at some of the archaeological finds in Jericho, you will find a tower. The Tower of Jericho was a stone tower. It was the largest tower. It's 28 foot tall, and this was the largest tower in the ancient days. World's oldest tower, one of the world's oldest stone buildings. All right. Now, here's the size of the tower: 30 foot in diameter at the base and 23 foot at the top. It took 11,000 working days to complete this. So it took a lot of people working together. Most likely slave labor there. This had a staircase inside of it of 22 steps leading to the top floor, which would be the 23rd floor. Ran Barkay, a professor at Tel Aviv University in Israel, did a paper on the midsummer sunset at Neolithic Jericho. Jericho shows the tower here, how large the tower was with this man standing on top of it. Alright, and then it shows the staircase going up. There's 22 steps going up to the 23rd level. You know how that relates to the mark of the beast. Now, it took 10,400 working days that were invested into the construction work. Now, if you divide that by 365, that is 28.5 years. If that doesn't show slavery, I don't know what does. It took 910 working days that would have been devoted solely to the construction of the tower. That's another 900 days. Then you have quarrying, plastering, masonry, and other required tasks were not included in this count, and would have added a significant amount of time to the project. Naval claimed that a monument built of permanent materials on a scale so large must have had a deep symbolic value as to the representative of the community's power. Now, power, dominion, Satan's dominion. He took Yahusha up here to see the rule of the world and his dominion that he was going to give him, right? I'm going to give you dominion of the world if you'll bow down and worship me. So obviously these people going up these stairs were bowed down. According to them, this stair was at 60 degrees, so you had to basically be on your hands and knees to climb up it. So you're basically bowing down as you go up these stairs. Now, if you go to this part 38, you see that anyone climbing up the stairs would, upon exit on the higher end, be directly facing the peak of Corinth. So these people, when they come up on this peak, they would directly be facing where Satan would be standing there, on their hands and knees on the way up, showing their worship of him. Also, this alignment is with the position of the setting sun during the solstice. So sun worship is associated with Satan worship. We know this. It says, furthermore, the conical shape of the tower and the mountain are somewhat similar when viewed from further off to the east, more specifically standing 30 to 35 meters. Quarantu would merge into one. The tower and Quarantu would merge into one, and the entrance would appear to be directly beneath the peak, sitting beneath, Hashatan on the peak. All right, here it says, to align so accurately within a building as premeditated as Jericho's tower, an axis entirely directed at two prime targets, the Quarantu and the summer solstice sunset, is surely beyond accidental. Satan took Yahusha up on this tower to show him the reigns of the earth and how they would be worshiping him, and all these governments would be under his power. The city of Jericho is in the shape of an eye. It has the outer side of the eye and the inner pupil of the eye. The city's in the shape of an eye. You have the tower that's 30 foot at the base, 23 foot at the top, and you have 22 steps leading up to the 23rd floor inside the city. Now, Mount Temptation is called Mount Quarantine, and for good reason. For Jericho was the beginning of mind control, and Jericho was a soul trap. Jericho is Strong's 3405. Now, this word is spelled Yod Resh, Yod Chet, Ua. Now, inside of this word, you have Riach. Riach is the verb of Ruach. Ruach, of course, is the spirit. All right, so we have the spirit inside of Jericho, and also Riach, which is Strong's 3394, which is the moon. The moon is the lesser light, the light of darkness. Okay, so you have darkness surrounding the Ruach. Now, inside of this word, you have this word right here, Yod Resh Yod. This word, if you look at Strong's 3404, Yeriyah, it means throne or to cast with Yah, right? Throne of Yah is what they say this means. Yah will throw. All right, and then there's another word, which is Yeriel. This one is throne of El. So word Riach, which throne or cast. So if you go back to that, you can see in Jericho, so you have cast up a wall of man. All right, so we notice that this is a scripture circle. You have two yods surrounding a resh. That's man's thoughts being cut off. All right, now ku, the last part of this, Jericho, ku is from chava, or which we call kua, because we know the ua is not a vav, right? Kua. Kua, the short form of that, if you Google those two words, that's Eve. So Eve is all mankind being cut off in the walls of Jericho. You can see that kai is the verb form of ku, which means to live. Now, further evidence of Jericho being a spirit trap or a soul trap is that Jericho had these plastered skulls found in it. There's a plastered skull. This is how they were found. They were made to look like the person was still alive. Archaeologists believed that they were sealed spirit traps designed to keep the soul from wandering around. This is the type of wickedness that was going on inside of Jericho. Notice they found evidence of 23 layers of civilizations that were there. Quarantine matches perfectly what is written in the book of Yahusha, Joshua 6:1, and Jericho was shut up tight because of the presence of the sons of Yisrael, none going out and none coming in. The perfect definition of quarantine. The Mount of Temptation, Quarantu, had previously been the location of Seleucid and Maccabean fortress known as Doc, also Doc and Dagon. Now, who was Dagon? This is a Assyrian cylinder with Dagon, or the fish god. Notice they're standing around this tree that we had talked about in the previous video. People being interconnected into this network. So see the net in the tree. All right, and above it you have this flying deity with an eye, the all-seeing eye. All right. Now here's another image of the fish deities, the little deity flying in the air. All right. This is Dagon holding the pine cone, which represents the control center of the human brain. All right. Here's another image. Dagon with the tree. This is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is the network. The standing post in the middle represents enlightenment. All right, that's the lure. It lures you in. That you're going to get something that, something great. And then above it, you see this deity here again. Looks like an eagle, wings of an eagle, right? Now, this is the tree of the knowledge, right? They're taking this control center out of the brain behind these guys. And you can see them plugging this in here. And they got this little bucket, right? The bucket, we know that holds the soul. Right? And next image we have here, well, let's start here. The winged deities, the sacred tree, right? Alright, then you have another image of this little deity up here. This little flying, winged deity. See it again? All these Arcadian symbols, you have the 8 reindeer, like Santa does, right? And you have another tree here. You can see all these little orifices for containing things. You have the base that's being held up. You have that little tower in the middle, and you have the fiery seraphim, as we've seen in Genesis chapter 11. All right, here's a close-up of this little deity. Here's another one. Another image here, Babylon. And this has gone through history from one culture to another. Starting at Jericho. Notice the same flying deity here with these creatures with feet of birds and wings. These are the seraphim. Alright, notice this is a demon image, Arcadian demon image. Notice it's holding 2 oxen. Now what else holds 2 oxen together? A yoke. A yoke. See a yoke? Oxen being held together by a yoke. They're being yoked. This is a human yoke. You see the image here, right? You see the position of the feet holding these 2 lines. They're yoked together. This is being yoked, being controlled. Alright? Now, notice in Ishtar, this deity, she has her hands held. That's being yoked. And she always has a symbol of owls. Owls. Notice these 2 deities standing on. But owls, the Hebrew word owl, as you see here, owl, right? This is Strong's 5923. Now in Hollywood they always use that number, 923. It means yoked, slavery, as imposed on the neck. It's a symbol of slavery. The symbol is in every culture. Same emblem, same imagery. You see that in Egypt? Ancient Egypt, you have the feet holding these balls here and the ball above the head. This is the eagle, right? This is an eagle. You see this eagle in all these cultures. Same image. This is the image of slavery, being yoked, being dominated. Right? Somebody put this meme out recently. But notice America, right? You have the same yoke. You have the same hands here. Same imagery. Now, what did Yahusha say about eagles? In Matthew 24, verse 28, he said, "For wherever may be the carcass, there will be gathered the vultures." Now, the vultures here are eagles, bird of prey. All right, eagles, ethos. Now, the word for carcass is patoma. Strong's 4430. Patoma means corpse, dead body, carcass, a fall. This word, meaning fall, right, comes from pipto. Pipto, Strong's 4098, means to fall, to descend. I fall under. It comes from the Hebrew word nephal, as in nephalim, which means fallen ones, means to fall. Now, when Yahusha was taken up on the Mount of Temptation, he took him up on a high, exceedingly high mountain, shows him all the reigns of the earth, as we already talked about. In Matthew 4:9, he says, "I'll give you all these things if you will fall down and worship me." The word for fall down is pipto. Same word, nephal. If you will become a fallen one, to fall. So these are the eagles. So what do the eagles represent? The Babylonian image. Notice these 3 rings that we It looks like a yoke that we looked at earlier, with the 2 feet holding these little balls, just like you see in all these images. 2 feet holding the 2 little balls. Well, those balls represent eyeballs. See the human brain, the 2 eyes, you see the 3 rings, right? Here's an overlay of the Babylonian image, right? It's hard to see in this image, but there's more. Let me show you. Here's another Babylonian image. Here's another overlay. All right, I can kind of control the transparency. See that? Now, same thing here with this one. Now, the Egyptian eagle is really easy to see. You see it's holding here. Okay, this is all throughout history. Mind control. Controlling your mind. Another image here. Same overlay. Now, America, 2024. This is the American seal. Alright, there it is. Perfect image of mind control. Now, interestingly enough, if you look at the optic chasm in the human body, you have the left eye and the right eye, and how they connect back to the brain. Alright, we're going to get into how this all plays together. But the seal, what does it mean? Power of peace and war. The olive branch and the arrows held in the eagle's talons denote the power of peace and war. The eagle always casts a gaze towards the olive branch, signifying that our nation desires to pursue peace, but stands ready to defend itself. It's the overlay of the left eye. Notice that the left eye has arrows in its hand. Well, interestingly enough, the left eye is connected to the right side of the brain, which is associated with emotions like fear, withdrawal-related emotions, including disgust. These are the fear and anger. They're all associated with the right side of the brain that's connected to the left eye that has the arrow. Now, the peace symbol is in the left. Is it over here on the right eye? See it? On the right eye. Now, the right side of the brain is connected to the left side of the brain, which is associated with feelings of happiness and peace, joy. Notice that there are 13 stars in this image right here, and there are 13 cranial nerves in this location. These are the 13 nerves in that location. The number 13 nerve is called the nervus terminalis. The nervus terminalis is known as the cranial nerve 13. There are the 13 cranial nerve, commonly referred to as the nervus terminalis or terminal nerve, is a highly conserved, multifaceted nerve found just above the olfactory bulb. Alright. The involvement of this tropic peptide, as well as the nerve's association with development in the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, suggests a primary role in reproductive development and, in humans, disorders such as Kallmann syndrome. Now, what is Kallmann syndrome and what are the symptoms of it? Kallmann syndrome is a condition that's characterized by the absence or delayed puberty and a lack and loss of sense of smell. Sounds like some symptoms we all know of, right? Even hearing loss. SARS-CoV-2 and the hypothalamic kesopeptine neurons. SARS-CoV-2 entry factors are highly expressed in nasal epithelial cells. I'm probably not saying that right. Interestingly, the terminal nerve, or nervus terminalis, the 13th cranial nerve, described as cranial nerve 0, has fibers that ascend from the olfactory epithelium. Cranial nerve 0. In this article, it says it may be potentially critical for the normal sexual development of both male and female patients. Now, we know it causes Kallmann syndrome, right? If you have a problem with this nerve. and that shows a total lack of smell. That's what this causes. And we know that during the COVID, many people had loss of smell or reduced sense of smell during that period of time. Now, if left untreated, people will have poorly defined secondary sexual characteristics. But does COVID actually cause that? Well, here's an article that says it actually does. COVID-19 may act like Kallmann syndrome via binding directly to vitamin A receptor STRA6. In 1987, Frigg and Lennon stated that the transaction of the terminal nerve in male hamsters decreases the frequency of mating. So this is population control. This is what it causes. And we know these people, you see here, these people want to control population. Okay, now cranial nerve 0. Over the course of the last and half century, the nervus terminalis has been known by a number of monikers, including the supernumerary nerve, the nerve of Pincus. Nerve of Pincus. What is that? Pincus is Pincus in Hebrew, right? So what does Pincus mean in Hebrew? Pincus, Hebrew Strong's 6372, Pincus. Alright, Pincus means Nubian or dark skinned. But you look at the word that makes up Pincus. It's from Pe, which we know means mouth, edge, or opening. Right? That's all these means. Opening. Alright? And naḥash, serpent. The opening of the serpent, the Pincus nerve. Amos 5:26, and you carried Succoth your king, and Kayun your idols, the star of your gods which you made for yourselves. The word Succoth in this passage is 55:22 and means a booth, as in the festival of Succoth, except for this is a counterfeit of that festival. This is Satan's Succoth. It means to cover and to protect, remembering that Satan was the covering angel. Who better to remove the covering of man than the covering angel himself? This word, of course, is associated with Saturn. It comes from the feminine word of sack, which means a sackcloth. It means to cover or to weave, a thicket of men, a crowd. It comes from the Hebrew word circa, which means to weave together, to knit together. Notice in this image, the net are knitting together inside of this tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Kasson, Revelation 17:13. They have one mind, and they shall give their power and authority to the beast. This statue is always associated with freedom. But what if I told you that freedom isn't what you think it is? The word free comes from Old English frio, exempt from, not in bondage, acting on one's own will. This word origin goes back to freed, peace, Old Frio, wife, Old Norse Frigg, the name of the wife of Odin, who is none other than Satan. Free is Satan's wife. Dom is dominion. It is the dominion over the wife. Frigg, who is Satan's wife, is where we get the word free from. Free is also the word for Fry, as in Friday. Friday comes from Venus. Venus is Hashatan's wife. Notice that Venus is always naked. because at the end of the 6th day, man will be made naked. And freedom represents being free from the Torah. This is true lawlessness. Telahim, Psalms 2:2. The sovereigns of the earth take their stand, and the rulers take counsel together against Yahuwah and against his Messiah, and say, let us tear apart their bonds and throw away their ropes from us. Venus was always depicted naked, and Venus was married to Vulcan. Vulcan, or Hephaestus, as we've seen, is the deity of metallurgy, crafts, and AI. From Hephaestus' Assyria, a brief history of artificial intelligence. The roots of AI can be traced back to Greek mythology, where the god Hephaestus created mechanical servants and the bronze automation Talos. Venus married to Hephaestus is symbolic of mankind being integrated into AI. The island that the Statue of Liberty on is in the same shape as this tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It has a torch on it, just like it does here where the statue sits. A shaft going down, just like this has the torch shaft going down. And she carries in her hand a torch. It looks similar to this torch. Now on her head, she has a crown of thorns. The crown of esteem taken away, and a crown of thorns placed. This is an image of the coronavirus. Notice on the outside of the virus are spike proteins. Another name for spike is thorn around the outside of this crown. The word virus, word origin. The word virus came from Middle English denoting the venom of a snake. Remember earlier we were talking about the cranial nerve 13. Cranial nerve 13. Another name for the cranial nerve 13 is the nerve of the pincus. The word pincus means a serpent's mouth or oracle.
The thing they will remember from the COVID crisis is this is the moment when everything went digital. And if this was the moment when everything became monitored, that we agreed to be surveyed all the time, not just in authoritarian regimes, but even in democracies. And maybe most importantly at all, this was the moment when surveillance started going under the skin.
The human brain by altering the human body's DNA.
The future of mind control, and the future being right now because these experiments are being done, is using gene editing tools. And one of them would be CRISPR. The way it works is take the CRISPR, which are these short alternating repeats of DNA. You put that together with an enzyme called Cas. And so you take the CRISPR that you want to use, and you put these pieces together that can be injected and insert this DNA to certain areas of the brain so that we can change brain cells and turn you into something you wouldn't otherwise be. So in this way, gene editing technologies like CRISPR really form a definite basis for future mind control.
Why do you think that is? I mean, why is that? I mean, is it just because people are lazy today or they're bored? I mean, are we just like bored, spoiled children who've just been lying in the bathtub all day, just playing with their plastic duck, and now they're just thinking, well, what can I do?
Okay, yes, we are bored. We're all bored now. But has it ever occurred to you, Wally, that the process that creates this boredom that we see in the world now may very well be a self-perpetuating, unconscious form of brainwashing created by a world totalitarian government based on money, and that all of this is much more dangerous than one thinks, and it's not just a question of individual survival, Wally, but that somebody who's bored is asleep, and somebody who's asleep will not say no? See, I keep meeting these people. I mean, just a few days ago, I met this man whom I greatly admire. He's a Swedish physicist, Gustav Bjornstrand, and he told me that he no longer watches television, he doesn't read newspapers, and he doesn't read magazines. He's completely cut them out of his life because he really does feel that we're living in some kind of Orwellian nightmare now, and that everything that you hear now contributes to turning you into a robot. And when I was at Findhorn, I met this extraordinary English tree expert who had devoted his life to saving trees. Just got back from Washington, lobbying to save the redwoods. He's 84 years old. He always travels with a backpack because he never knows where he's going to be tomorrow. And when I met him at Findhorn, he said to me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "New York." He said, "New York, yes, that's a very interesting place. Do you know a lot of New Yorkers who keep talking about the fact that they want to leave but never do?" And I said, "Oh, yes." And he said, "Why do you think they don't leave?" I gave him different banal theories. He said, "Oh, I don't think it's that way at all." He said, "I think that New York is the new model for the new concentration camp, where the camp has been built by the inmates themselves, and the inmates are the guards, and they have this pride in this thing they've built. They've built their own prison, and so they exist in a state of schizophrenia, where they are both guards and prisoners, and as a result, they no longer have, having been lobotomized, the capacity to leave the prison they've made, or to even see it as a prison." And then he went into his pocket and he took out a seed for a tree and he said, "This is a pine tree." He put it in my hand and he said, "Escape before it's too late." See, actually for 2 or 3 years now, Chiquita and I have had this very unpleasant feeling that we really should get out. And we really should feel like Jews in Germany in the late 30s. Get out of here. Of course, the problem is where to go, because it seems quite obvious that the whole world is going in the same direction. See, I think it's quite possible that the 1960s represented the last burst of the human being before he was extinguished, and that this is the beginning of the rest of the future now, and that from now on there'll simply be all these robots walking around, feeling nothing, thinking nothing, and there'll be nobody left almost to remind them that there once was a species called a human being, with feelings and thoughts, and that history and memory are right now being erased, and soon nobody will really remember that life existed on the planet.